They built a military program designed to break the strongest warriors in the galaxy. A human girl walked through it like it was warm-up. So, let me tell you about Crevithor. Yeah, I know. Sounds like someone gargling rocks, but that is genuinely his name. Crevithor Malekith, to be precise. And if you are wondering whether he lived up to that aggressive throat-shredding title, oh, you have no idea. This guy, this absolute monument to military discipline, had spent 43 cycles, that is about 60 of your Earth years, turning soft, privileged spawn from every corner of the galaxy into something resembling actual soldiers. The Galactic Military Academy on Station Primus, that was his kingdom, his domain, his personal torture chamber, if we are being honest here. Now Crevithor was not just any instructor. No, he was the Instructor. The one they called when some ambassador's kid needed their ego surgically removed. The one they called when a species got too comfortable, too soft, too convinced that their plasma rifles and shield generators meant they did not need to know how to actually fight. He was a Crithian, which, if you are not familiar, means he stood roughly 8 feet tall, had 4 arms, each capable of bending titanium bars, and possessed a face that looked like someone had taken a perfectly good rock slide and given it anger management issues. His success rate, immaculate, terrifying, absolutely legendary. In 4 decades he had broken every single recruit who thought they were special. Every single one. The Quellan prince who arrived with a personal escort, washed out in week 2. The Zentheri commando who had Terem-confirmed kills before even enrolling, crying for his brood mother by day 5. The Thos warrior poet who wrote epic ballads about her own greatness. She actually requested a medical discharge. Crevithor had a gift, you see, a talent for finding that little crack in someone's armor, that tiny weakness, and just pushing, and pushing, and pushing, until something fundamental broke inside them and they either became soldiers or they went home. So naturally, when the human exchange program started, when the Terran coalition decided they wanted to send their best and brightest to the academy, Crevithor volunteered immediately. Oh, he volunteered with enthusiasm, with glee, even. Because he had heard the rumors. He had heard all about these humans, these pink, squishy, fragile little things, from some backwater world that had only just figured out faster-than-light travel. Death World, they called it. Ha! Crevithor had trained recruits from 6 different classified death worlds, and they all broke eventually, all of them. The human was named Maya Torres. When Crevithor first saw her file, he actually laughed. Not a chuckle, not a snort. A full, booming laugh that echoed through his office and made his assistant, a nervous Pixith named Drin, drop an entire stack of data pads. Maya Torres, 5 feet, 4 inches tall, 120 pounds, 22 years old. Previous military experience? 0. Combat training, basic self-defense courses, psychological profile, stable, adaptable, curious. Her academy entrance scores were adequate, just adequate. Nothing spectacular, nothing that screamed soldier, let alone warrior. Crevithor looked at that file, looked at that tiny smiling face in the identification photo, those brown eyes and that confident expression, and thought, 3 days, maybe 4 if she is stubborn. He made a note in his personal log. Logged it officially. Human female. Exchange designation. Anticipated washout timeline. 72 to 96 hours. He even took bets with the other instructors. Actual currency changed hands. The over-under was set at 1 week, and Crevithor took the under so fast it made heads spin. When Maya Torres arrived at the academy, stepping off the transport with a duffel bag and that same smile from her ID photo, Crevithor watched from his office window. She looked around at the station, at the other recruits, dozens of species, all bigger, all stronger, all more obviously designed for combat. And she smiled wider. Actually wider. Crevithor poured himself a drink. This, he thought, was going to be entertaining. He had no idea. None whatsoever. Day 1 started exactly how Crevithor planned it. Oh, he had this beautiful schedule prepared, this masterpiece of calculated suffering, 0600 hours. The recruits assembled in the main training hall, and Crevithor stood there, all 4 arms crossed, looking like Judgment Day had taken physical form. 63 recruits from 42 different species, and one human, standing near the back, still smiling like she was at some kind of vacation resort. "Welcome to hell," Crevithor announced, his voice doing that thing where it somehow filled every corner of the massive chamber. "For the next 16 weeks you belong to me. Your comfort, irrelevant. Your feelings, meaningless. Your previous accomplishments, forgotten. You are nothing. You will become something. Or you will leave. Usually on a stretcher." Standard speech. Seen it a dozen times. Most of the recruits looked appropriately terrified. The Vaxel twins were already sweating, their chromatophores flashing nervous colors. A Horaxian in the front row had gone completely rigid. Even the Kaldorian, whose species prided itself on bravery, looked like he was reconsidering his life choices. Maya Torres? She was taking notes. Actually taking notes on a datapad, writing down Crevithor's threatening speech like it was a lecture on agricultural economics. First exercise, basic conditioning. And when I say basic, I mean basic by Academy standards, which translates to absolutely brutal by any reasonable measure. 5-kilometer run in 1.2 standard gravity. Should have taken the average recruit about 40 minutes of suffering. The gravity plating on Station Primus was adjustable, you see, and Crevithor loved cranking it up just enough to make everyone question their skeletal structure. The Vaxil twins collapsed at kilometer 2. The Horaxian made it to 3 before vomiting, which for the record is spectacularly unpleasant when Horaxians do it. 17 recruits did not finish. 23 finished but required medical attention. The remaining 23 completed it in various states of "please let death take me now." Maya Torres finished in 31 minutes. 31. Not first place. That honor went to a Crithian named Vex, who had 3 legs and apparently no cardiovascular limits, but she was 5th overall. 5th. Out of 63 recruits, and she was barely breathing hard, while a then warrior, literally bred for combat, was sprawled on the floor contemplating his ancestors' disappointment. This tiny human was doing cool-down stretches. Crevithor watched this, all 4 of his eyes narrowing. Fine. Fine. Cardio was not everything. Maybe humans had efficient lungs. Maybe their death world gave them good stamina. The real test would come next. Strength training. Oh, this was where soft species died. Not literally, usually, but metaphorically. The weights were calibrated, the resistance machines set to standard recruitment levels designed to push every species to their absolute limit. Crevithor walked between the stations, watching recruits struggle, watching them shake, watching that beautiful moment when they realized they were not strong enough. Maya was at the resistance press. The machine was set to 60% of human baseline strength according to her file. She completed her reps. All of them. Then, and I am not making this up, she looked at the machine's display, frowned, and increased the resistance. Increased it to 80%. And did another set. A Pixith next to her was crying. Actual tears. Trying to move weights that should have been easy for his species. Meanwhile, this human, who should have been struggling, was just going. Like it was mildly inconvenient rather than agonizing. "Torres," Crevithor's voice could strip paint. "You think this is a joke?" She looked up, confused. Genuinely confused. "No, sir. The machine setting seemed incorrect for my mass, sir." "Incorrect," Crevithor repeated, tasting the word like poison. "Yes, sir. Too light, sir." "Too light." A Kaldorian recruit nearby made a sound like a deflating balloon. Because here is the thing, Kaldorians are strong. Properly strong. They evolved in high gravity, and this human, this fragile-looking pink thing, just casually announced that Academy standard weights were too light. Day 3 brought the gravity chamber. Now this was Crevithor's favorite. A rotating chamber where gravity gradually increased while recruits performed obstacle courses. It started at standard and went up, and up, and up. Most species tapped out around 1.5 times standard gravity. The truly exceptional made it to 1.8. Crevithor's personal record was 2.3, and he was immensely proud of that. The recruits went in groups of 5. The first group, all species from standard gravity worlds, started strong. By 1.4 they were crawling. By 1.6 they were done. Medics pulled them out. Second group, similar story. Third group had a Thros who made it to 1.7 before her legs literally gave out beneath her. Then came Maya's group. The gravity started climbing. 1.2, 1.4, 1.6. Her 4 groupmates were finished, slapping the panic buttons, gasping for air. Maya was still moving, still completing obstacles. Her movements were slower, sure, more deliberate, but she was not stopping. 1.8, 1.9, 2.0. Crevithor was standing now, all 4 hands gripping the observation rail. 2.1. She stumbled. Finally, she was going to quit. She was going to slap that button and admit she was not. She caught herself. Pushed upright, kept moving. 2.2. Shut it down, Crevithor ordered. Sir, the technician, a nervous Quellan, looked confused. I said shut it down. Now. The gravity returned to normal. Maya stood in the center of the chamber, breathing hard, really hard this time, sweat absolutely pouring off her, but standing. She looked at the observation window with an expression that was not quite disappointment, like she had wanted to see how far she could go. That night, Crevithor reviewed the recordings, watched them again, and again, pulled up the human baseline data, cross-referenced it with Maya's medical file. And slowly, very slowly, a cold feeling settled into his stomach. Earth's gravity? One standard. Their atmosphere? Oxygen-rich but within normal parameters. Their evolution? Oh no. Persistence. Predators. Endurance hunters. A species that evolved by literally chasing prey until it died of exhaustion. A species whose idea of recreation included running 26 miles for fun. A species that produced adrenaline, a combat stimulant, naturally when threatened. Crevithor poured himself another drink, a much larger one this time. This was not going according to plan, not at all. So, here is where Crevithor made his second mistake. His first mistake was assuming Maya would break physically. His second, thinking he could break her mentally. Because, you see, when the physical training did not work, when this human just kept going and going like some kind of horrifying biological machine, Crevithor decided to escalate, to go nuclear, as the humans might say. He went straight for psychological warfare. Now, psychological conditioning at the academy was not for the faint of heart. Literally. 3 recruits had suffered complete mental breakdowns the previous year. The simulations were designed by actual military psychologists, experts in fear response from 100 different species. They knew exactly which buttons to push, which ancient evolutionary terrors lurked in every species' collective nightmares. Darkness for species that evolved as prey, confined spaces for species from open plains, social isolation for hive minds. The simulations were perfect, precise, and absolutely merciless. Week 2, Day 1. Crevithor personally signed off on Maya's first psychological evaluation, standard terror protocol. They put her in a pod, hooked up the neural interface, and loaded the program. The simulation? Being hunted, in darkness, by something bigger, faster, and hungry. It was a scenario that triggered panic responses in 97% of tested species. The Vaxel twins had lasted 4 minutes before screaming to be let out. A Crethian warrior, someone from Crevithor's own species, made it to 11 minutes before his stress hormones hit dangerous levels. Maya Torres lasted the full 30-minute session, completed the entire program. When the technicians pulled her out, expecting tears, expecting shaking, expecting some sign of psychological distress, she blinked in the light and asked, "Is there a level 2? The lead technician, a then named Corthus, who had been running these simulations for 8 years, just stared at her. That was level 4. Recruit Torres. Oh, Maya said. Then, after a pause, it was kind of like a camping trip back home. Well, except the thing chasing me was slower. Crevithor reviewed the biometric data personally. Her heart rate had elevated. Yes, her adrenaline spiked. Absolutely. But then, and this was the disturbing part, both had normalized, stabilized, while still being hunted, while still in mortal danger, at least simulated mortal danger. Her body just adapted, treated it like exercise, like a workout. Run the void scenario, Crevithor ordered. His voice had lost some of its confidence. Just a bit. Just enough for his assistant Drin to notice and make a small note in his personal files. The void scenario. Oh, this one was special. Sensory deprivation combined with temporal distortion. You were alone. completely alone in infinite darkness, and your perception of time became unreliable. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like days. It was designed to break even the most stable minds, to make them confront their absolute insignificance in an uncaring universe. Philosophical horror. Weaponized. The record for endurance was 42 minutes, held by a Zenfari monk who had trained for decades in meditation. They put Maya in the chamber, sealed it, activated the protocols, and waited. 42 minutes passed. Then an hour. Then 2 hours. The monitoring staff kept checking the equipment, convinced something was malfunctioning. But no, everything was working perfectly. She was in there, alone with infinity, and her vital signs were stable, bored, even. Her brain activity suggested she was thinking probably deeply, but not panicking, not breaking. At 3 hours, Crevithor himself opened the chamber. Maya blinked at the sudden light, stretched and said, "That was interesting. Gave me time to think about my training schedule. I think I have been neglecting core work." Corthus, the simulation technician, actually filed a complaint, a formal complaint, saying that either his equipment was broken or humans were broken, and he needed clarification on which before he continued testing. But here is what nobody at the Academy understood yet, what Crevithor was just beginning to grasp with slowly dawning horror. Humans were not just from a death world. That term, death world, it got thrown around a lot in the galaxy. Lots of planets were dangerous. Lots of planets had predators in harsh weather and difficult conditions. But Earth was special. Earth was excessive. See, humans evolved alongside nightmare creatures. Not just one apex predator, but dozens, hundreds. Things with claws and fangs and venom and hunting strategies refined over millions of years. And humans, soft, clawless, fangless humans, survived, thrived, became the apex predator themselves. Not through strength, but through being absolutely too stubborn to die. They were persistence predators, who hunted by literally following prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. They were pack hunters with complex communication who could coordinate attacks. They were omnivores who could eat almost anything and survive in almost any climate. But more than that, much more than that, they had cultural evolution. Humans told stories. They told stories specifically designed to scare themselves. Horror stories, ghost stories, tales of monsters and darkness and death. For entertainment, they invented entire genres of art dedicated to triggering their own fear responses, and then they consumed that art voluntarily, repeatedly, for fun. They had been inoculating themselves against terror for thousands of years. So when Crevithor put Maya in the fear isolation chamber, the Academy's ultimate weapon, the thing reserved for the most elite special forces training, she was not unprepared. She had been preparing her entire life. Every horror movie she watched as a teenager, every scary story at summer camp, every true crime podcast, every thriller novel, every video game where something jumped out of the darkness, all of it was training, unintentional, recreational training for exactly this scenario. The chamber was simple, pure phobia, activation. It scanned your brain, identified your deepest fears and manifested them in holographic detail. Spiders for arachnophobes, heights for those afraid of falling, social humiliation for those with anxiety. It was personalized nightmare fuel, and it had a 99.4% breakdown rate within 20 minutes. They put Maya in at 0800 hours on week 2, day 4. By 0900 hours, the other instructors were gathering outside the chamber. By 1000 hours, Academy Command was watching the feeds. By 1100 hours, someone had started a betting pool on when she would break. She never did. 6 hours. 6 full hours in that chamber, confronting holographic manifestations of her worst fears, whatever those were. The system never revealed specifics. That was private. And when they finally opened the door, more out of concern for equipment limitations than for her safety, Maya walked out, looked at Crevithor, and said something that would get quoted in Academy staff meetings for years afterward. "Sir, I appreciate the training, but that was basically just exposure therapy. My insurance back home does not cover that. So thanks, I guess." Corthus quit the next day. Just quit. Submitted his resignation and took a position at a civilian research station studying plant psychology or something equally non-threatening. In his exit interview, he said, and this is documented, I spent 8 years learning how to break minds. That human is unbreakable. I am not equipped for this. Nobody is equipped for this. And Crevithor started drinking earlier in the day. Started reviewing xenobiology texts on human evolution. Started for the first time in 43 cycles of teaching, questioning whether he was the right person for this job. Because Maya Torres was not just passing his tests, she was barely noticing them. And week 3 was coming. Week 3 when things got really serious. The academy staff had started talking. Whispers in corridors, nervous glances at the human recruit, and someone, probably Drin, started backing up all the training footage to secure servers. Just in case. Just in case this all went somewhere that required documentation. Or burial. Week 3. The breaking point exercise. Now, let me explain what this actually was, because calling it an exercise is like calling a supernova a light show. Technically accurate, but wildly insufficient. The breaking point was not standard curriculum. It was not even advanced curriculum. It was the thing they used to identify candidates for black operations, for deep space reconnaissance, for missions where failure meant death and success meant surviving long enough to be traumatized by what you had done. In 43 cycles, Crevithor had run this exercise 11 times. 11. Out of those 11 times, 62 recruits participated. 41 washed out immediately, requested transfers or took medical discharges. 18 completed it but were never quite the same afterward. Just 3 passed with flying colors and went on to become legitimate Special Forces operators. Those 3 were currently the most decorated soldiers in their respective species militaries. The exercise was simple in concept, horrifying in execution. 20 recruits, multiple species, dropped into a simulated combat zone with active environmental hazards, limited resources, and one objective: survive 72 hours. That was it. No victory conditions. No enemy to defeat. Just survive while everything, and I mean everything, tried to kill you. The simulation took place in Dome 7, a massive training facility that could replicate any environment. For this exercise, Crevithor chose a combination: jungle terrain with Earth-like gravity and atmosphere, because he wanted Maya to feel comfortable before he crushed her, toxic rain that could burn through standard armor, aggressive local fauna, all simulated but with real pain feedback through the neural interface, and temperature swings from 40 degrees Celsius during the day to -20 at night. Oh, and one more thing. The recruits were not alone. There were hunters, automated combat drones, programmed with adaptive AI, designed to track, terrorize, and eliminate targets. They were not supposed to kill anyone, obviously. The safeties were on, but they could incapacitate, they could injure, they could make you wish you were dead. 20 recruits entered Dome 7 at 0600 hours. The species breakdown was diverse. 2 Crithians, 3 Then warriors, 4 Kaldorians, a Zenthari, 5 Quellan, 2 Pixith, 2 Horaxians, and 1 human. Maya Torres, still smiling, though the smile had changed somewhat over 3 weeks. It was less naive now, more knowing, like she had figured something out that the rest of them had not. Crevithor watched from the control room, surrounded by monitoring equipment, medical staff on standby, and every senior instructor at the academy. Word had spread. The human who could not be broken. They all wanted to see what would happen. Hour 1 was reconnaissance. The recruits scattered, some forming small groups, others going solo. Standard procedure: find water, find shelter, avoid the drones. Maya went solo immediately, moving through the jungle canopy with disturbing ease. She had been paying attention during wilderness survival training, apparently, really paying attention. Hour 6. The first drone encounter. A Pixith named Ren stumbled into a patrol pattern. The drone activated, weapons hot, and Ren panicked. Started running. The drone pursued, and here is the thing about panic: it makes you stupid. Ren ran straight into a ravine, broke his leg in 3 places, and had to be medically extracted. 1 down, 19 remaining. Hour 12, the temperature dropped. The toxic rain started. Recruits scrambled for shelter. The Kaldorians, bless them, tried to build a group shelter. Admirable. It collapsed within 20 minutes. They were extracted with minor chemical burns. 4 down, 16 remaining. Hour 18, night fell. And this is when Maya Torres stopped being a recruit, and became something else entirely. Something that made Krevithor stand up from his chair, all four hands gripping the console, and whisper, "What in the name of the void is she doing?" Because Maya had not just survived the first 18 hours, she had thrived. While other recruits were hiding, conserving energy, treating this like a survival scenario, Maya had gone hunting. Hunting! She had tracked one of the drones, followed its patrol pattern, and set a trap. An actual trap, using materials from the environment, some cable from her equipment harness, and what appeared to be a shaped charge she had improvised from emergency flares. The drone walked into the trap, the charge detonated, the drone went down, sparking and disabled, and Maya, moving in the darkness like she was born to it, salvaged its power cell and 2 weapon modules. "That is not," one of the observing instructors, a then named Grecos, said slowly. "That is not protocol. That is not defensive survival, that is offensive action." "That is hunting," Krevithor corrected, his voice hollow. "She is hunting them." Hour 24. 3 more recruits were eliminated. A Zenfari got hypothermia, 2 Quellan gave up mentally and requested extraction. 13 remaining. Maya had salvaged 2 more drones, had created what could only be described as a base camp, had stockpiled resources, and then, this was the part that got the footage classified later, she started coordinating the other recruits. The remaining then warriors found her camp. Expected conflict, maybe competition for resources. Instead, Maya shared, gave them shelter, gave them a plan. "The drones have patterns," she explained, and the audio feed picked this up crystal clear. "They are predictable. We can either hide from them for 3 days, or we can neutralize them and make this dome safe. Your choice." The then trained warriors from a proud martial culture looked at this tiny human, covered in mud and drone lubricant, holding improvised weapons, and they followed her. Actually followed her. Within 6 hours, Maya had organized 8 of the remaining recruits into a coherent unit. They were not just surviving anymore. They were controlling territory, setting ambushes, taking down drones with coordinated strikes. Krevithor watched his carefully designed nightmare scenario getting systematically dismantled by a human who should have been crying in a shelter somewhere. The control room had gone silent, dead silent, because everyone was realizing the same thing. They had made a terrible, fundamental error in judgment. Hour 48. 12 drones were disabled. 5 more recruits had washed out, unable to handle the stress despite Maya's organization. But the remaining 8, led by Maya, were not just surviving. They were winning. They had turned a survival scenario into a combat operation. They had shelters. They had weapons. They had a command structure with Maya somehow at the center. "Sir," Drin said quietly, standing beside Krevithor, "should we increase the difficulty? Add more drones? Change the parameters?" Krevithor did not answer immediately. He was watching Maya on the monitors. She was teaching a Horaxian how to set snare traps, explaining patrol patterns to a Quellan, moving between her recruits, checking on them, organizing them, leading them, and there was something in her movements, something predatory and efficient, that finally made Krevithor understand. Humans were not just survivors. They were not just persistent. They were collaborative apex predators who thrived under pressure, who got calmer when things got worse, who had spent millennia in their evolutionary history hunting prey smarter, faster, and stronger than themselves by being more organized, more adaptable, and more absolutely relentless than anything else on their nightmare planet. "No," Krevithor said finally. "No changes. Let it run." Hour 72 arrived. 8 recruits emerged from Dome 7. They were exhausted, yes. Dirty, absolutely. But they were walking out under their own power, and more importantly, they were walking out together. Maya Torres was at the front, and when she saw Krevithor waiting at the dome entrance, she saluted. Proper military salute. Sharp, precise. "Exercise complete, sir. 8 recruits accounted for. 17 drones neutralized. 0 fatalities. Permission to clean up and debrief?" Krevithor returned the salute automatically, mechanically, granted recruit Torres. As the recruits filed past, heading to medical, one of the thin warriors stopped, looked at Krevithor, and said something that would haunt the instructor for the rest of his career. "Sir, respectfully, you should put her in charge of this academy. We would all be better soldiers for it." That night, Krevithor filed his incident report. wrote down everything that happened, every impossible thing this human had done, every assumption he had been wrong about, every moment his carefully constructed understanding of military training had been turned on its head. And then he made a recommendation, one line at the bottom of his report. Suggest full review of human integration protocols before additional Terran Coalition personnel arrive. Current training parameters insufficient, possibly dangerous. 3 days later, Academy Command classified the footage, buried it in secure archives, and quietly transferred Crevithor to a teaching position at a satellite campus where he would never encounter another human recruit. The official reason? Routine rotation. The real reason? They saw what he saw. They understood what he understood. Humans were not like other species, and the galaxy was not ready to know exactly how different they were. Not yet. Maybe not ever. So, the footage review happened in a locked room. Literally locked. Command-level clearance only. 5 Academy officials, including Commandant Thress, a 400-year-old Quellan, who had seen 3 galactic conflicts and supposedly nothing surprised him anymore. They watched 72 hours of recordings in compressed format. Watched Maya Torres systematically turn a braking exercise into a military operation. Watched her organize, strategize, and lead. Watched her hunt combat drones like her ancestors hunted mammoths on the African plains. Halfway through, Commandant Thress stopped the playback. Just stopped it. Sat there in silence for what felt like an eternity. Then he said, very carefully, very deliberately, "How many humans did the Terran Coalition say they were sending to our academies?" 200, someone answered. Over the next 5 cycles, spread across all major training facilities. Thress nodded slowly. And they are all like this? Nobody answered. Because nobody knew. Maya Torres could have been exceptional even for a human, or she could have been average. Completely horrifyingly average. In that uncertainty, that not knowing was what terrified them. Classify it, Thress ordered. All of it. Every recording, every biometric reading, every incident report, Omega-level clearance, and I want a full xenopsychology analysis on human combat behavior before we accept another Terran recruit. We need to understand what we are dealing with. Sir, one of the officials, a Crithian admiral named Vekros, spoke up. If we classify this, we cannot use it for training purposes. This footage shows incredible small unit tactics, leadership under pressure, adaptive problem-solving. It is exactly the kind of— I know what it shows, Vekros. Thress interrupted. It shows that we built a training program designed to break the strongest warriors in the galaxy, and a human turned it into a casual team-building exercise. It shows that our understanding of stress responses, of fear, of breaking points, does not apply to Terrans. And if that information becomes public, if every species in the Coalition sees how easily a human navigated our most extreme protocols, what do you think happens to the Academy's reputation? Silence. Because he was right. The Galactic Military Academy had built its prestige on being the hardest, most demanding training program in known space. If word got out that a human, a species barely a century into galactic society, had waltzed through their nightmare scenarios, that reputation would evaporate, recruitment would plummet, funding would disappear, politicians would ask questions, so they buried it. Locked it away in archives that required 3 separate authorization codes and a biometric scan to access, scrubbed it from standard databases, and issued orders that footage of human recruits in extreme training scenarios required command approval before recording. Crevithor's transfer came through within a week. He did not fight it, did not argue. He packed his personal items, his commendations, his teaching awards, and he left Station Primus without ceremony. His new posting was on a quiet training station near the Outer Rim, teaching basic hand-to-hand combat to municipal security forces. A massive demotion for someone of his experience. He accepted it without protest. Because Crevithor had learned something that the Academy officials were still processing. He had learned that humans were dangerous, not despite their softness, but because of it. They had no natural armor, so they built it. They had no natural weapons, so they invented them. They had short lifespans, so they accomplished more in those brief years than species with centuries managed in lifetimes. They were weak, so they became strong through sheer stubborn refusal to accept weakness. Every disadvantage their evolution gave them, they turned into motivation, into fuel. And most terrifying of all, they were social, cooperative. They did not just survive as individuals, they thrived as groups. Maya had not just passed the breaking point exercise. She had created a functioning military unit from exhausted, terrified recruits in under 48 hours. That was not training. That was instinct. Millions of years of evolution teaching humans that together they were unstoppable. In his new posting, Crevithor would occasionally have a drink, usually several, and he would tell the other instructors about the human. They thought he was exaggerating, making up stories. Nobody could be that adaptable, that resilient, that terrifyingly competent. He stopped trying to convince them eventually, let them think what they wanted. He knew the truth. And the truth was that humans were not just another species joining the galactic community. They were something the galaxy had never encountered before. Death World survivors who had climbed to the top of their food chain through intelligence, cooperation, and absolute refusal to quit. And now they were here, among the stars, ready to show every other species what real persistence looked like. As for Maya Torres, she graduated, quietly. No special ceremony, no recognition beyond standard honors. She received her commission, her assignment, and she shipped out to her first posting without fanfare. The Academy did not advertise that she had completed every training protocol with flying colors. Did not mention that she had turned their ultimate test into a leadership seminar. Did not say anything at all, really. She was assigned to a joint coalition task force, multi-species unit, high-risk operations, the kind of posting that usually went to veterans with decades of experience. Her commanding officer was a Zenthari colonel named Thresh, who had specifically requested in writing that if any human recruits came through the academy, he wanted them on his team. Thresh had read the classified report, had watched the buried footage, had seen what Maya Torres could do when everything was trying to kill her, and he thought to himself, yes, I want that on my side when things go bad. Because things always went bad. That was military life. The question was never if you would face impossible situations. The question was how you would handle them. And humans, apparently, handled them by getting to work. The official Academy statement when asked about the human exchange program was always the same. Professional. Diplomatic. Human recruits are adapting well to our training protocols. We look forward to continued cooperation with the Terran Coalition. What they did not say, what they would never say, was that the protocols were not designed for humans. That humans did not adapt to the protocols so much as expose the protocol's limitations. That every assumption the galaxy had made about stress, fear, and breaking points needed to be revised now that humans were in the picture. They did not say any of that. They just smiled, nodded, and quietly updated their training manuals. Added new sections, new warnings, new protocols specifically for Terran recruits, and they locked the footage of Maya Torres away in archives where it would sit, gathering digital dust, a secret reminder that sometimes the scariest thing in the galaxy is not the monsters. It is the ones who smile at the monsters and ask, "Is that all you have got?" So, that is the story. The story the Academy does not want you to know. The story they buried under layers of classification and bureaucratic nonsense because it was too embarrassing, too revealing, too fundamentally terrifying to let circulate through normal channels. And yes, I know what you are thinking. How did I get access to this? How do I know all these details? Let us just say I have friends in archives, and friends who owe me favors, and leave it at that. Some secrets are too good to stay buried forever. Where are they now, you ask? Well, Crevithor is still teaching on that Outer Rim station. Last I heard, he is actually quite happy there. Less pressure. Smaller classes, students who actually break when they are supposed to break. He has started writing a book apparently. Working title, Understanding Death World Psychology, a survival guide for instructors. No publisher yet. Probably never will be. Too honest. Too revealing. But he writes it anyway. Therapeutic process, I suppose. Getting all those thoughts out. Maya Torres. Oh, she is doing just fine. Just fine indeed. That task force she joined, they have completed 17 high-risk operations in 3 years. 17. Their success rate is perfect. Absolutely perfect. And if you talk to any of the non-human members of that unit, they will tell you the same thing. They trust her. Completely. Without question. Because when everything goes sideways, when the mission falls apart, when all the careful planning turns to chaos, Maya Torres gets this look, this calm, focused, almost happy look. And then she gets to work. And somehow, impossibly, everyone comes home. She made captain last cycle, youngest in her unit. There are rumors, unconfirmed obviously, that Terran Coalition Command is watching her career very carefully, building a file. Because maybe, just maybe, she is exactly the kind of officer they need when humanity's time comes to really show what they can do on the galactic stage. As for the Academy, they accepted 43 more human recruits over the following 3 cycles. 43. And here is the really funny part, the part that keeps me laughing late at night. Every single one of them graduated. Every one. Some struggled more than others. Sure, some were not as spectacularly competent as Maya. But they all made it through. All of them. Because once you understand that humans do not break the same way other species break, once you adjust your expectations, they are actually quite easy to train. Terrifyingly easy. The other instructors, the ones who did not get the memo, the ones who did not know about the buried footage, they learned the hard way, tried to break their human recruits, tried the same tactics Krevithor used, got the same results. Confusion, frustration, slowly dawning horror. There is a support group now, informal obviously, instructors who have trained humans and need to process what that experience did to their worldview. They meet twice a month. Attendance is growing. So here is my advice, free of charge, to any instructor, any commander, any military professional who might encounter human recruits or soldiers in the future. Do not try to break them. You cannot. Their entire evolutionary history is a story of things trying to break them and failing. Ice ages, predators, diseases, each other, they survived all of it. Your training program, no matter how extreme, is not going to be the thing that finally does it. Instead, point them at a problem, give them an objective. Then get out of their way and watch what happens. They will surprise you. They will do things you did not think were possible. They will find solutions you never considered, and they will do it with this infuriating, cheerful determination that makes you wonder if they even understand how impossible the task was supposed to be. They understand. They just do not care. Impossibility is not a barrier for humans. It is a challenge, an invitation, a dare. And humans never ever back down from a dare. Oh, and one more thing. That footage? The classified recordings of Maya Torres dismantling the breaking point exercise? Someone made copies. Multiple copies. They are out there, floating around in the dark corners of military intelligence networks. I have seen them in training sessions that officially never happened. Heard them referenced in strategy meetings that were never recorded. The Academy buried the footage, sure, but you cannot really bury something once enough people know it exists. So somewhere, right now, some instructor at some academy is watching a tiny human turn their nightmare scenario into a training montage, and they are realizing, probably for the first time, that humanity's entry into the galactic community was not just another species joining the coalition. It was the food chain getting a new apex predator. One that smiles, cooperates, and never ever quits. Sweet dreams, Academy Command, sweet dreams. The humans are here now, and they brought their death world instincts with them.